All right, welcome in. It's every day. It's been wonderful. It's been an everyday thing right here on Bleacher Report as we're going through everything leading up into the trade deadline. It has been a daily thing that I've been with you, and I've loved it. And you've been very active in the chats. I will continue to answer those between each and every one of the topics that we do today for the next half hour. Don't forget, we'll be back again on Friday. We'll be back again on Sunday. Monday as well, and then I will be with you on Bleach Report for the duration of pretty much the entire day and all of our coverage popping in there, giving you the latest throughout Tuesday, leading up into that 4 p.m. deadline Eastern, and then breaking down maybe some trades that happened, maybe didn't happen, that were close after the deadline on Tuesday. So make sure you watch all of that right here on Bleacher Report. We're going to go through the topics here before we get to everything that we're landing to. So teams looking to make a big splash. We'll get to that. We'll get to the latest trade rumors and rumblings that I've gathered since I last spoke to you about 24 hours ago. The defensive end, the defensive tackle market. We'll get to buyers and sellers. Really, who's most aggressive in looking to make a sale? Who's most aggressive in looking to make an accusation? We'll go through all of that, or accusation, you know what I mean, looking to acquire a player. We'll go through all of those throughout the next half hour. But again, I will always answer your questions between these. What I do know off the top, and I don't want to be a wet blanket, but I'm going to say it. Way it was put to me, unless everyone's lying to me, that I talked to, this may not be super duper active by Tuesday. We'll see. Sunday plays a huge role in the way some of these teams that are kind of on the fence in terms of how they're thinking. Some of these games going down, whether it's the way Buffalo plays against Kansas City, how does that change general manager Brandon Beane's thinking about how important it might be to get an outside boundary piece at the wide receiver position? It might be a glaring need after that game, and he ends up being more aggressive. What the Ravens do on Thursday night might change the way things happen, and how aggressive they are about getting somebody up front. What happens on Sunday may change this, but right now the vibe is there's not going to be a boatload of moves happening. Yes, there'll be some movement, but it may be a little bit quiet. What we do know since the last time I talked to you that's been kind of reaffirmed or new, run through this list I put at the top here for you. Jaguars still looking for somebody on the defensive front, defensive side of the ball. Ravens are definitely looking up there as well. We'll get to those positions specifically and maybe some teams and players on the defensive end and the edge spot, and as well as the defensive tackle spot. Lions are looking for somebody opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. They got some money. I'm going to get into some dollar figures for you guys today as well. Saints expected to move one of their three receivers, maybe two of them. I'm not sure Olave is the one, but it could be either Shaheed or Brandon Cooks. Keep an eye on the wide receiver position as a whole. We're going to get into that right now. There's just not a ton of players out there that you can buy. Chiefs still looking for defensive side of the ball, less so than a running back. Broncos, it could be sneaky on the offensive side of the ball. We'll see. We're going to get to some of these receivers because they're going to find it very, very interesting about how aggressive some of these teams are, because there's guys that can definitely improve your offense very, very quickly with the acquisition and the addition to maybe be your number two, or play a decent role within the way your offense goes. The first one is Jacoby Myers. And listen, the chat is blowing up. I'm loving it. We're going to get into it. Trust me. Jacoby Myers, I asked Copilot this because a lot of people are curious about him being in the last year of his deal. He could be on the move. He's asked for a trade before. They don't really want to have a fire sale there with the Raiders, but could he be headed elsewhere? So I asked Copilot, just look up Jacoby Myers' offensive targets by week. And this is what was found. Week 1, 10 targets. Week 2, 12 targets. Week 3, 4. Week 4, 7. Week 5, 6. Week 6, 4. Now, I think he certainly is someone that has a chance to get moved. He actually might be the most likely receiver to be moved out of the group of guys that could potentially be finding a home elsewhere. They end and make that move for Tyler Lockett. He could be the guy who comes in and replaces what Jacoby Myers had in store for them. He's not really, in the last year of his contract, is he a part of their 2026 plans? Would they like to acquire some added talent? We have to remember here that John Spytek, their new general manager, signed a 5-year contract. Like, he's going to be there for a minute. How does he want to start manipulating this roster in terms of capital in the 2026 draft to be able to go out there and get more assets for this roster as a whole? He could be somebody, and I talked to teams about this, that will improve a wide receiver group very quickly. He can still play. He can do the dirty work in the middle of the field. He can be that intermediate pass catcher for you. Is this a spot where somebody like the Steelers might go after him, or somebody, say the Bills, or somebody that's looking at receivers, and there's a couple of teams that are out there doing that? He might have the greatest chance to be moved. I mentioned Rashid Shaheed, and Shaheed might be the one that is the odd man out there in New Orleans, and maybe the one that's moved. I talked to somebody yesterday. I think I might have said it on here. I'm not sure. I'm doing so many shows, but it was if he joined the Bills on the outside on the boundary, it would be outstanding. He would be a great addition. The speed threat over the top that Buffalo's not really lacking, and the ability to actually complete those passes downfield is something that would be very beneficial to Josh Allen in that entire group. I think he'd be a big addition, maybe to the Steelers as well, maybe to the Broncos. Who knows? I think they do like a couple of those young guys, and Sean Payton wants to play them. But maybe a deal comes about for the Broncos that maybe makes this offense better as they look to try to beat the Chiefs in that division for the first time since 2015. So I would take a look at it because he is set to be a free agent after this year. The speed, he brings much more than that if you talk to teams. Obviously, the speed is there, and that's warranted and that's needed and it's desired. But he brings more than that to what your offense would be. Those are the two receivers right now that I'm kind of keeping my eye on as we're getting closer to Tuesday. Brees Hall, I already saw it in the chat here multiple times. And then we'll maybe move on to some of your questions before our next one. This one has kind of like a couple weeks back, you might have thought, like, there's no way they hang on to him. Look at the way the season's going. They haven't had any sort of contract negotiations with him. He's set to be a free agent. They have two other young backs that they think are very good. You have Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis. Allen has obviously the knee injury, and has that changed their thinking a little bit in 2025? Possibly, certainly. They're not as deep as they were. But the guy is still 21 years old, and they have him under contract for 2 more years. That's valuable. Isaiah Davis is just 23. They have him signed through 2027. So they are set moving forward with some guys that they do like, some young guys that they like. But you look at Brees Hall and what he did this past Sunday, rushing for 2 touchdowns, throwing for another. Was it 136? I think he rushed for something to that. There seems to be a sense in that building a little bit, at least by some people. Maybe we shouldn't move Brees Hall. Maybe he is a part of what we want to build moving forward. Look at some of these offenses that have gone to another step with a guy like Daniel Jones and Jonathan Taylor's taken off. And Christian McCaffrey has carried this entire really Niners offense as they've been struggling with all of these receivers. We look at three different receivers, right? Three different running backs right now, and you add Bijan to the mix, they're looking to go over 2,000 scrimmage yards this season. Like, how valuable is the runner right now? Maybe this is a move we want to maybe try and keep him. There's no real feel on this right now. I think there is interest in him. I think he has said he'd like to stay, but at the same time, if you do make a move for him, my understanding is you probably got to get a deal done. That's just normal. But I do think the thinking has changed a little bit of we can get something for Brees Hall. Now it's, wait, what are we getting? Make sure it's enough, and then we'll move him. If it's not enough, maybe we decide to keep him. I still don't think they've made up their mind yet in where they stand. Could maybe the Texans come swooping in, or the Chargers? I feel like their feel on the running back spot has changed a little bit. Maybe not as aggressive as they were a couple of weeks ago. That's why time is a big part of this. This is always kind of a moving barometer with the way these teams have this interest. But I still think they haven't fully decided, and they're waiting to see if the right offer comes along for Brees Hall to see if they're going to decide to move him. If the right offer does come, I wouldn't be surprised if they did move off of Brees Hall. All right, let's get to some of these chats here. What's on here? Olave drops. Say. Olave to Bills would be dope. That would be an absolute dream for the Buffalo Bills if Chris Olave went and landed on that team. I mean, I mentioned Shaheed would be great for them. Olave would be a step further. The asking price for Chris Olave is obviously much higher than some of these other receivers we're talking about. And it looks like they're trying to maybe get a contract done with him, so he looks like he might be the one staying. He's not producing in Jacksonville this year. I'm assuming you're probably talking about Brian Thomas Jr. I don't think he's on the move, but obviously there's very few players in this league that you won't listen on. Kayvon Thibodeau doesn't appear. Again, I checked last night with some people I know that doesn't look like he's really on the move. I like that you said Colts. Keep an eye on this show a little bit later when you get to the defensive end, defensive tackle market. I think they could be a team that's looking for somebody for sure. Brees Hall to be a Chief. How about that? Some of these that you guys throw out, I do like looking at them and going like, man, that would be really fun. You look at all the weapons they have there. Kansas City's been under center more frequently, running the football, at least trying to run the football a little bit more with mixed success, but we'll see. What will Seattle do? I think Seattle would be one of these teams, and I talked about it yesterday, so I'll bring it up again today. One of these teams that would like to add a guard in front of Sam Darnold if they could. There's a couple of teams looking for guards, and there's some guards on varying different degrees that could be available. Some veterans veterans, like the ones in Cleveland that could possibly become available that are set to be free agents, or you maybe have some guys like an Evan Neal, who's a former top pick, who's been a healthy scratch. I mean, do you try to swing maybe in certain different levels in terms of what you're willing to give up to help protect Sam Darnold? I do think secondary would be something they're looking at. There's definitely a couple of corners that are still kind of out there, but not as many after the McCreary deal, after the Michael Carter deal. Philly goes and makes that move. We'll talk about that in a second. Achan should also be traded. I don't see that happening. He looks like he's the one that's going to be, no matter what happens in Miami, part of what they're looking to do moving forward. They really, really like him. What else we got? For a fourth for Shaheed, I think like third, fourth is what you're looking for if you're the selling team. I think like the Raiders would love a third for Jacoby Myers. I think the Saints would love a third or fourth for Shaheed if that's what ends up taking it to get the deal. And Derek Honey in New England for 3 years. Listen, the Ravens are not in sell mode right now. If anything, they think that's a very winnable division. I think it's also why nobody's really out of it in that division, which is why I don't think Trey Hendrickson's really going anywhere. 8 and 9 could win that division, in all honesty, with where it's at right now. If the Giants don't get a wide receiver for Dart, Joe Shane should be fired immediately. Ho! Coming in hot. I do think, and this is as this, like I said, it always changes as we go. 2 weeks ago, the mentality about the Giants around the league was this. Look at them rolling. They just beat Philly. They're going into Denver. That's a defense that's really, really good. But if they win that game, okay, look out. And before that Denver game, it was if we win this game and if we beat Philly again, I think their mentality would be very different. I think they were looking for a piece to be out there for Jackson Dart. Man, the kid can play. I'll be honest. I've talked to some defensive coaches that have gone against him, and they are like, this guy is the real deal. And I do think the thought process with the Giants, though, was we're not going to rent a player to be this year. They would love to get a player that goes, hey, this could be the guy for Dart now, and this would be a great compliment for Malik Neighbors in 2026. I don't know if they make the move now that they've, the way that last 2 weeks have gone and losing Scadaboo. Do you give up the assets in that sense? Is Shaheed moving? Kind of mentioned that. Trade the man. My fantasy team depends on it. What else we got here before we got Shaheed? Go Bills. We can't beat KC. That's going to be a monster game. When I mentioned some of these games on Sunday, determining how teams are thinking before 4 o'clock on Tuesday, that's definitely one to watch. Watch the outcome of that game for both of those teams. And that could be a determining factor whether they do decide to change their thinking or go a little bit further in the direction they already were thinking. Keep an eye on, like, if James Cook and company are able to run all over that Kansas City Chiefs defense, that would maybe be looking for some help on that defensive front, if they can, like a defensive tackle for some depth or some defensive tackle to beef them up in the middle. Like if James Cook goes crazy, maybe that pushes Brett Veach a little bit further. If you see the Bills offense struggle mightily and this Chiefs defense kind of smothers them between the numbers and the hashes and can cover the tight ends and cover Shakir and stop the run, and you can just tell there's just nothing on the outside, maybe that forces Brandon Beane to be a little bit more aggressive towards that. That's a game I definitely have my eye on about changing the way some people think. Will not be a lot of movement this year. The pretenders will still be the same. The contenders will be there in the end, and we know it will be Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore. I just got to say, so you're calling the Colts pretenders, I guess, the Broncos pretenders, and the Patriots pretenders. I would say this. I think the Colts are for real. I certainly do. I think the Patriots are there quicker than they thought. I don't think that makes them massive buyers, but I do think they'd like maybe to add a running back for depth and maybe a pass rusher up front. And Denver, I think, has the defense to compete with anybody. This is a bix test this weekend for Denver. You go from the worst defense in football in the Cowboys to facing the best defense in football in the Houston Texans. If Bo Nix and company can really move the ball there on Sunday, that's, again, why Sunday's so important. Oh, okay. Either Denver doesn't move the ball well and they go, we need a piece on offense because we're almost there. That's why Sunday's huge. I think Baltimore does get themselves back in the mix. We'll see. It's kind of like a do or die rest of the season. It's really kind of fun to watch. I mentioned what Seattle will do. Let's get down to Chuba Hubbard or Hubbard or Dowdle are not getting moved. I think they're going to kind of keep both of them. I think the contract's a little tough for Chuba Hubbard and how that goes. Who's going to make a big splash? Let's get moving here. We're halfway through this already. It's tough. It's tough to make a big splash. I guess we got one last year with Devontae Adams, I guess, as an older receiver, but maybe a future Hall of Famer. Teams don't like to get rid of good players. It's as simple as that. So that's usually why these splash trades don't happen that often in the middle of the season. You just don't like to get rid of your really good players. This is where I wanted to give you an opportunity to see where a lot of these teams stand. And this is from the league and kind of where everybody stands in terms of money. You have to have some cap space to be able to make some of these big splashes. The teams with the least amount of cap space, from the smallest to to the largest in this group of 10, the Bills have the fewest amount of cap space at $1.76 million of cap space right now. The Chiefs have 1.85, the Chargers 2.8. So going in those teams that want to be aggressive, they'd like to add something. Yes, you can move some money around, but this is still a number that I think everybody listening should know when it goes to the Bills, Chiefs, Chargers, Dolphins. Colts only have 3 million and they're looking for a pass rusher. You look at the Falcons, the Giants, the Broncos only have 5 million and they're looking to maybe add possibly an offensive piece. These are things you got to kind of know. They're kind of in the guard market as well. And then the Raiders and the Bears. Adversely, these are the teams with the most amount of money right now, which maybe a splash could happen with a greater chance because you have the cap space to take on an existing salary of somebody right now. And again, yes, money can be moved, but here's the team with the most available money right now. The Patriots. The Patriots have $49 million roughly available in cap space. The Cowboys have 31. They're looking to make a move on defense. I don't know if it's going to be major, but they're looking to make a move. The Commanders, I don't think they really make a move. The Lions are looking for a pass rusher opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. They have $23 million, almost $24 million of cap space. These things, are part of the equation in all honesty about who has money and who doesn't really have money. Followed by the Browns, Niners, Steelers, Seahawks, Titans, Panthers is kind of where everything stands in terms of the teams that have some money to spend in a splash. Maybe Howie Roseman's the one who makes the splash. Who knows? Maybe he's the one that goes out there and makes the big surprise that everybody's curious about. I do think Howie is one of the GMs, and the reason I bring him up is just anything's on the table usually all the time. He's always a guy that's thinking a little outside the box and thinking very aggressively. He is on a bye right now. They did bring back Brandon Graham. To my understanding, that doesn't change their thinking at the edge rusher spot. They'd still maybe like to bring somebody in there. I talked to some people yesterday that still believe that they're going to be aggressive towards maybe another pass rusher, even though Brandon Graham came and Nolan Smith's going to be returning soon. They make the trade for Michael Carter. By the way, don't expect Cooper DeJean to go start playing outside now. I think he's too valuable in the middle of the field. I think this is for depth and versatility and what they want to do. But could they make another move? Like, I think they could. I really do. And could they sell somebody? I don't. Who knows? I just think Howie could be one of those people that's available to make a splash. And if the Bills get very aggressive, and looking at the position, it could be with where they're at. You only got a certain number of years with these quarterbacks that are generational. Do they try to reach again like they did last year with an Amari Cooper? Do they make a trade again? Maybe that's a splash that we end up seeing. Not entirely sure. Is San Fran going to make a blockbuster trade? Great question to bring up the 49ers. They definitely need pass rush help. They've called on everybody from Trey Hendrickson on down to see what they can do after losing Nick Bosa. You've lost Fred Warner, who's really the heart and soul of your defense. I think they understand how well they've played with all of the injuries they have. I think that puts Kyle Shanahan in the coach of the year type of conversation. You are going to get Brandon Ayuk back at some point. You are going to get Ricky Pearsall, who's still not practicing. God, it's killing my fantasy team because he started out so well. He's going to come back at some point. Juwan Jennings is getting healthier. You have George Kittle returning. You saw how that changed your run game on the offensive side of the ball. You have an aging core in San Francisco. That's the part that I'm looking at. You got Trent Williams who's up there, right? You have Kittle who's getting up there. You have Christian McCaffrey who's got 10 NFL seasons, which is crazy for a running back. And I think John Lynch has to think, how many future assets do I want to sell in a blockbuster trade, like said here, to mortgage some of the future to win right now, or do we have to continue to kind of turn this roster? That's the balancing act I think the 49ers have to do, and I don't know if they go out and do a giant type of sale. Jeffrey Simmons to the Steelers. Jeffrey Simmons is not going anywhere. He's kind of the two, talk about untouchable players. It's kind of him and Cam Ward, which are the ones are staying. For the Jets, trade Will McDonald, keep both Jermaine Johnson and Quincy Williams. I think Quincy could be one potentially on a move. We'll see. I think Will McDonald, he's got some time left on his contract, to my understanding. I think Jermaine Johnson has maybe a greater chance of staying than Will McDonald. We'll see. I think the Jets are not in a fire sale, but in the ability to move some pieces, certainly. I'll take a third for Jacoby. I think that might be kind of around where it's at, I think. You'll get a bag of chips for Ridley. That contract makes a Calvin Ridley trade very, very difficult as well. And there's a lot of people that are like, hey, he's. Some people think he's really good. Some people are like, eh. I think that contract makes things a little difficult for Calvin Ridley. Chargers trading. I think they'd like some help on depth wise on that offensive line. I think that would be something they'd be looking for. I think they're not alone in that sense. I don't know how aggressive they are at the running back spot. I think for a minute there, we all thought that when both guys went down, but Vidal's been pretty good back there filling time, and I think you always have to remember the general manager in all these situations. Joe's one of these guys, he like values picks a lot. He really, really values building that way. And sometimes that stops some deals from end up happening. The Bengals, I think, are more or less going to maybe stay pat. Maybe they end up sending Logan Wilson somewhere. They don't make a lot of midseason trades. They just really don't. But maybe he's somebody that heads somewhere else as he's lost his starting job and they feel like they can get something back for him. I mentioned the Chargers. Lions add quarterback depth. I think the Lions are certainly looking for secondary help. They were definitely one of the few teams that was very interested in McCreary, wait, who went to the Rams. So I know that they've been looking around at corner. I think they're looking around at edge rusher as well. Love you, JP. Wow, compliment. Dig it. Those are very few and far between, so it's kind of sweet. Michael Pittman's going to stay put. Man, do they love the way that he plays there. Bill should trade Curtis Samuel. Yeah, it's not really working out very well for a seventh round pick. That one's not going great. Okay, you keep dodging my Lions question. I just asked the Lions question. I just answered it. Lions have actually wrapped up. Yeah, Lions actually have some space too, and the signing of Aiden Hutchinson doesn't change their aggression or their kind of finances and how that was going about. Reek Woolen to Philly, maybe. I think that's going to be a guy that might be on the move. Certainly, I don't think Howie's done. I don't think the Michael Carter trade changes his thinking, whether it's in the secondary or the BG trade changing his thinking, whether it's at the pass rusher side of things. Let's get to the D end, D tackle market, because a lot of these questions in here are asked about that. Commanders looking to add a wide receiver depth, or is there buzz on Tyron Burke moving up, Trillian Burke moving up? I don't see the Commanders giving away any more assets at all. By the way, is that an Ohio State hoodie on there? Go Bucks, let's go. I don't see the Commanders making really any moves. You think of all the capital that they gave up last year from the move for Marshawn Lattimore, and then they gave up more for the Laramie Tunsil one. I don't know if you can just keep doing that over and over again. All right, defensive tackle, defensive end. This might be a really fun group to watch. I think pass rusher, I kind of talked about it. And the interesting part is I think there's definitely teams that are contenders that would like to bring in a pass rusher before this deadline, and that's going to drive the price up a little bit. That's great news for the sellers, bad news for the buyers, and that could maybe change what some of these teams are willing to give up. Yes, I want to be aggressive for it, but it might be too rich for me. That happens a lot in these deals. It's like, we talk all week about some of these deals happening, and then people will come and say, well, they didn't make a deal. You said they were trying to make a deal. They did. They tried to make a deal. They eventually had a line in the sand they wouldn't go by, and they wouldn't go and give up capital that was higher than they're willing to go to. And I think with this group, with the teams that are interested and the sellers that have players, I think might drive the price up a little bit. So we'll see. These are the teams that are interested in DN, D tackle, and I'll kind of go through it. Ravens are interested in both, whether it's a defensive tackle or a D end or an outside edge rusher. The Panthers are interested, but I don't know if they actually make a move, but I think they'd love to add a rusher up front. The Lions definitely, I mentioned a couple of times here now, are interested in a rusher opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. The Patriots, I think they might be conservative and not, really go wild, but they have the money if they want to, if there's somebody they in love with and it's going to be part of their future. That's a big part of the way New England's going to operate. We're not just going to bring somebody in to help this push as we're first place in the division right now, and we're getting this thing going much quicker than we thought. Whoever we bring in, we want it to be part of our future as well. So we'll see what New England ends up doing. Philly, I mentioned, obviously looking at edge. And I think the Bucks are looking at both defensive tackle and edge. I don't know how aggressive Jason Light will be there, but I think those are teams that are all looking. That's a good number of teams. There's some teams there. I mean, these are all roughly playoff. Well, Panthers not really playoff teams, but like the other ones are legit contenders. And this is a position, and this is why this one gets moved. I wanted to bring it up. Like coming in as a receiver is tough. You got a lot to learn, a lot of chemistry, a lot of trust, a lot of different aspects of the playbook. You can come in and start playing third downs as an edge rusher right away and just, hey, see ball, get ball. And you can start making an impact right away. Von Miller did that in one of the more famous trade deadline trades of a team going for it when he went over to the Rams and helped them win a Super Bowl. I think, as of last night talking to people, one of these edge rushers in Miami is going to go. is going to be on the move. That's starting to become much more of a certainty. Who it is, we'll find out. It's whether, it's the compensation, it's who that team likes, but whether it's Jalen Phillips, who's 26, he's currently playing on the fifth-year option. Um, that's definitely a name that teams are interested in. Bradley Chubb is definitely a name that teams are interested in. Had the ACL, he's come back from that. He does have 19.45 million in base salary in 2026. That's going to have to be restructured probably in some sort of capacity. Jermaine Johnson, I mentioned him and Will McDonald. People are looking at those. I don't know. Johnson seems like it's starting to shift back towards him maybe staying, but obviously you're going to listen to your offers and see what's there. There's Arden Key, who's probably a little bit maybe on the cheaper side in terms of capital you have to give up. And he has a history with a place like, say, San Francisco. Do they want to do something there? Draymond Jones with Tennessee. Tennessee's definitely very willing to move those guys on that defensive side of the ball. He has a history of playing on the inside. He did that when he was drafted by Denver, and then when he went to Seattle, and now he's playing on the outside. He could be a guy that's maybe not, in that group of giving up a ton to get, but he could help your front right away. I think defensive tackle. I think defensive tackle with Quinnen Williams. It's an interesting name. I don't think they want to trade him. I don't think they want to give him up. But I think if you're the Jets right now, you have to listen. Because if somebody blows you away with just a ridiculous offer and you have a new general manager and a new head coach and you're rebuilding this thing and you don't have a quarterback, maybe you do listen. I don't think they move him. I really don't. But I think they would listen just to see exactly what's there. I definitely think that's the case. Do the Saints make any additional any additions, or just trade for picks? I think it's probably trade for picks. And where they're at right now, you just switch to Tyler Shook and where he's at. And so I just want to make sure. You want to make some. Okay. Just always checking on the news, guys. You always want to make sure that you're keeping some of the guys there happy. He works a little bit differently, that Mickey Loomis guy. Kind of slightly a different approach. Omar Khan, I think you're talking about. He's been aggressive in Pittsburgh. Certainly, he's made it very clear that he is willing to do anything to kind of make this opportunity with Aaron Rodgers as successful as possible. You go and make the big DK trade. On the other side of the ball, you go and get Jalen Ramsey, and then you add Slay, and then you're getting, Jonnu Smith. I think a lot of people are going, do you add another receiver to be a complement of DK? That's something they've been mulling for a while, to my understanding. This defense is the highest paid defense in football for the last 4 years. I wouldn't be surprised if they looked at making a move on that side, maybe anywhere on that defense to try to make themselves better. The secondary, I was talking to somebody yesterday, it's just like they're just showing their age very, very quickly. And it seems like, Jalen Ramsey might be better in the slot now than it would be on the outside. I think he's eventually going to be a safety, and actually a pretty good one on the back end of his career. Patriots need to finesse Miami for Phillips. I would love to see Vrabel get a little bit aggressive and just see where that goes. Packers are never very active at this time. Let's remember everything that they just gave up for Micah Parsons. So in terms of capital, obviously acquiring more talent might be a little bit tough. Would you look in the secondary possibly to see if there's something you don't have to give up a lot for? I think you have a little bit of an excess on the edge, and maybe you can deal somebody away to get some picks back with everything that you've given up. But I don't know if the Packers are going to be all that active right now. All right, who's buying? Who's selling? I'll say that real quick before we kind of get in there. Are the Lions aggressive? I think so. I think buyers right now, I think we got Philly, Pittsburgh, Seattle, San Francisco, Baltimore, man, I'd say Buffalo, Dallas, Denver, Houston. I think Houston is looking. If they can get somebody, say Houston beats the brakes off of the Broncos. It's a great defense. It's maybe the best defense we got in football. And all of a sudden, this offense looks like it's a little bit, if we could just protect CJ Stroud, I think Denver's going to get after him. Maybe they can find a guard. I think they're one of those teams looking at the offensive line. They're one of those teams looking at running back as that backfield hasn't really come together. I think the Colts are going to be moderately, interested in trying to add a piece to that defense, I think. I think the Chiefs as well. I think the Chargers. These are all teams looking. I think the sellers are getting to be pretty clear, though. I think Cleveland is certainly a seller. Miami, to an extent, will be a seller. The Saints, I think, to an extent. None of these are fire sales. I think the Raiders, to an extent. Jacoby Myers, obviously, is the one that comes to mind. Titans, Jets, all of those look to be willing to give up to pieces and much more willing to listen than maybe some of these other teams. Can the Giants be both buyers and sellers? Certainly. I think there's a couple of teams that kind of fit that mold, actually, as they kind of finesse their roster a little bit. What can the Ravens do to bolster their pass rush? There's definitely going to be some players out there, and they're on varying degrees. We kind of broke that down a little bit. Quinn Williams to Dallas. Jerry's got a lot of picks. Get nervous. I don't think they make a splash. I think Jerry's well aware that they are more than just one player away from this defense going from the worst in football to being okay. Because actually, they just need to be okay, actually, to be good and maybe be a threat to some people with as good as their offense is. But I don't know if he does something something all that all that aggressive. While y'all ruin this app, I don't even know what that means. Go Bucks, let's go. Go Bucks, we're red hot, baby. We can't feel. The cap isn't real. It is real to an extent, you have to remember. And when doing some of these deals, it does prove to be valuable aspect of how you go about some of these trades. We're gonna be back with you tomorrow on Friday. And jump in this app. I love when you guys throw out all these questions. It gets me thinking about some other stuff. I love when you all interact with each other, so I appreciate it. I will see you all tomorrow when we jump back in here for another notebook and we get closer and closer to this deadline and see what movement we can have. We'll get some more rumors for you tomorrow.